welcome to GCS Connect Leaders Series. I'm here with Claus Höfele, who is head of development for Doctari, very interesting company based in Berlin. They work within the medical technology and medical software sphere, but we're going to find out more about that as we go forward. Claus has a long history in engineering. Highly technical, great programmer, great software engineer, but for the last 5 years he's been working with people and leadership. We have done a session with a colleague of his and kind of a network partner of his, a guy called Jack, in the past, and he recommended that we speak to Claus, and here's Claus now. So great to meet you, Claus. Welcome to Leader Series. Leader Series is where we within GCS connect, get to speak to real leaders within our community and get to really understand more about you, your companies, what you think about technology and business. So it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So I've obviously introduced you now, Claus, and done a bit of a pitch, but do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're coming from, and maybe a little bit about Doctari?
Yeah, so currently I'm supporting around 20 engineers as the head of development and software engineering at Doctari. It also includes cloud web development, AWS development, but also Salesforce and more back office integration. So it's a fairly broad field. And I worked my ranks through the ranks. Like I used to be a software engineer, then a tech leader, a team lead. So I worked my way up through to management positions. And as you mentioned, I'm focusing completely on people, process, culture topics now. And I've come around a bit. I worked in Japan for a while. I lived in Australia, and then 8 years ago I decided to go back to Germany, and I'm now based in Berlin. And Doctari is basically a platform to match medical professionals with opportunity at clinics. And I think our customers like Doctari because they have flexible staff, and medical professionals like to work with us because they have a bit more say in where they work. They also get a bit more money. It's good for both sides.
Okay, that's fantastic. And for you, it's very much around putting together a platform for your customers and your candidates to use, I guess.
Yeah, I mean we've always been strong with like processes and also doing the transactions, like the contracts and payroll and these sort of things. We are kind of full service, but of course we want to get it more modernized, automate more things, and also we have a lot of cloud development going on to provide self-service to our customers and also to doctors. And so of course this is a bit more the modern part of our software development.
Brilliant. So just kind of going back to what you just mentioned there, what's particularly interesting for me, and we've had a few of these conversations in the last. I'm quite jealous of you actually. You've got a mug of coffee there. I was rushing around. I didn't get a chance to get myself a mug of coffee before we started. So every time you take a sip, I'm going to be jealous of you there, Claus. But there you go. That's life, isn't it? Moving through your career, when you got into technology, is that something you really wanted to move towards managerial, or is it something you graduated to?
It kind of developed naturally because once you are a bit more senior in software development, you suddenly realize that maybe technology is the easy part and people is maybe the hard part.
I agree with that.
Huge respect for people, that can align people towards a common goal. That's a bit my philosophy. And I have huge respect to people that can do it. I'm still learning, of course, but I have also a few years experience of doing that now. I'm super interested, how you can build great teams, how they can actually support and work towards business goals. So that's a bit my focus at Doctari as well.
Sure. And how long have you been with Doctari?
About a bit more than a year now. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So obviously you've had that experience of moving into a location as a leader, and that's obviously something we can talk about. Just quite interesting. You said about living in Japan and living in Australia, and then obviously returning to Germany and maybe Berlin itself. I don't know whereabouts did you grow up or start working in Germany?
Yeah, I'm from the south of Germany. Yeah,
Okay.
from near the border to France. So
Okay.
for me,
That's kind
Berlin
of,
was also something new. We basically
yeah.
decided on Berlin because my wife and we both have never been to Berlin, and Berlin
Yeah.
sounded like a great idea. So we went
Yeah,
for it.
no, I've been to Berlin myself, and it's quite a strange place because it's so cosmopolitan, isn't it?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
so there's German is spoken so little in Berlin. You wouldn't believe it, would you? You know.
yeah. Yeah, the tech scene is very international. Also, the companies, lots of companies speak English. I mean, at doctari, we speak like the IT department speaks English, but maybe with the business departments we speak German. So it's a bit more of a mixed environment. Yeah, but it's yeah, interesting to be here. And it's also easy if you come new to Berlin. It's easy to fit in because not everything is kind of set
That's
up
right.
in a static way.
I had an interesting. We have an office in Berlin, and obviously DAC is one of our fastest growing regions. I had an interesting conversation when I was there last, back in when you could travel, in a coffee shop in Berlin, where I ordered a coffee, but I didn't even try to like say bitter or try to speak German, which to me in a foreign country is always quite rude, right? And most people speak English, but you've got to give it a go. And I said to the person, like, I think Entschuldigung, I tried to kind of say, so I speak some German and say sorry, I didn't speak in German. And the person who was serving me was Irish and said, oh, I don't speak German either. So it wouldn't have helped. And I was like, really? You actually got a job in a coffee shop not actually speaking German? It's that sort of place, isn't it? It's a very exciting place to be and get involved with the startups and the technology that's happening there, isn't it?
I mean, it's a very, let's say, not fragmented, but different parts of Berlin are very different, right? Like usually German cities, they have like a city center and it's kind of grouped around this. And Berlin is very distributed. It has the culture and the living is very different places in Berlin.
Yeah, that's right. And you said, I mean, it's kind of coming on to the kind of leadership styles. I mean, you obviously worked in Japan and Australia. Did you find the leadership styles quite different there as opposed to Germany? Do you think the teams are put together differently?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been only a leader myself in Germany. Like when I moved to Berlin 8 years ago, I started getting into that career. So
Yeah,
Australia and Japan, obviously, I saw through the eyes of maybe an individual contributor or like a
yeah,
employee. And yeah, it's of course Japan was super different. I mean, I was basically there to just make the experience. It's
yeah,
very long hours, working very long hours. It's very a bit more hierarchical,
yeah,
but there's also like a strong bond to the company itself, right? And
sure.
fortunately, as a foreigner, I was not expected to work all these hours. So I was a bit like,
Oh, really? They always gave you this.
yeah, the foreigners, they are not quite so they are a little bit weird, so they can make exceptions.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, there you go. Yeah, so it didn't count. Um, okay, so going through, obviously what's interesting for you, I guess, is that you've seen it from both sides. So you have been, like you said, a programmer. You've been within the teams, and you've moved towards leadership. So 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 starting your leadership career, what are the main challenges that you've come across, and have they been different within different companies?
I mean, I think in the beginning, when you have been a software engineer yourself, I think it's the risk is that you get too much involved in every decision, like, and you
Yeah,
start micromanagement because you think you know it better. And I think this wears out over time pretty quickly because if you don't focus 100% on software development, you are not up to date anymore. I mean, you can follow along, right? But you're not
yeah,
hands on in the field anymore. And so pretty soon there was a realization that, it's not my job to know everything better. It's my job actually to get people together, to agree on something and to line them and to give them context. And
okay,
this
yeah,
is really, really important for me and my teams as well, that we have a way that we have like 20 engineers. So how do they make decisions together? I don't want to make the decision. I think the engineer should do it because you really need the buy-in for them to support these decisions, right? So like
yeah.
top-down decisions don't work. I mean, of course, there are constraints, right, and boundaries, but I think the focus should be on collaborative decision making.
Because you've got that strategic element where you're moving forward and this is where we're going, but you need your teams and the people with the skill sets to really take those tactical decisions on how we're going to get there, don't you?
Yeah. And this is pretty much naturally leads to some kind of servant leadership approach, where you understand you are not the one who knows the best. You're more like serving the team, so the specialists can come together and make the best decision. And this is a bit my approach to leadership.
Yeah, and have you found that has differed between different companies? Is it linked into different types of cultures, maybe different sizes of business?
Yeah, it's I mean, how collaborative you can be in the teams also depends a lot on, how much does the business allow the team also to influence like business decisions or goals. Like, are you a company that works towards, problems and gives the problems to the teams and, hey, solve this for me? Or are they saying, hey, do this, do X, Y, and Z, and then you're a feature factory and have to follow along? And of course, engineering is a bit at the end of the food chain. There's usually product management in front of it. There's usually a business management in front of it. And of course, I've experienced this very different in very different settings. And then it's for me a bit up to, to challenge maybe business leaders that are not that are a bit more on the top down side to also include the teams, because they have awesome ideas, and getting those together is really the goal. Yeah.
And you've obviously done quite a lot of work kind of outside, as a leader, been involved in open source projects, been involved in the tech community. Do you think that's particularly important for someone like yourself to show leadership, but also show kind of input to the community?
No. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've been more involved with open source when I was a software engineer, because I had some open source project and also like talked on conferences about these projects. With the last 5 years, I kind of felt I'm learning so much. Am I at the right place to actually teach other things? But nowadays, I'm very interested to also, set up workshops, especially in this remote situation. It's, I think, a big opportunity, if people come together in an interactive workshops remotely from all over the world and actually teach each other stuff. I've been pretty active on Clubhouse and discussing with other leaders, and so I'm hoping to get these remote workshops going in the future pretty soon.
Yes, I mean we're discussing and thinking about how we might move the podcast to Clubhouse. I mean, obviously it's the hip tool at the moment, isn't it, Klaus? How have you found it? And obviously the way I see it is it's very much an open social media, it's a kind of a social media forum for chat, isn't it? That's how I see it. Do you think it will help to kind of implement new improvements, new innovations within tech and with other businesses?
What's amazing about Clubhouse is that you have fairly easy access to really people that know their stuff. For example, yesterday evening, I was in a chat with Kim Scott. She wrote the book Radical Candor, a book which I really enjoyed reading. It's about how to give feedback in a good way. And, she was talking half an hour with other people on her new book, right? And this is actually an opportunity that's really unique. And it's amazing. Also, like different topics. There's a lot of self-help and a lot of about marketing, but you can also get into stuff like meditation or, I don't know, coaching or whatever. Yeah. Whatever you can think of, I think you will find a chat about it. It's great.
That's right. Yeah, I think we will do a GCS Connect. We'll do some sort of leaders series on Clubhouse. So hopefully, Klaus, you'll be able to join us. So when you think about the challenges that you've had as a leader, which is really, I think what you're saying is that raising yourself out of the day-to-day activities to focus on bringing your team together and making sure people are working in a passionate way. What's the key things you've done to deal with those challenges? Because I feel the same myself sometimes. I come from a recruitment background. I'm the CEO of a business, but I also like the job of recruitment. So you get brought back into, as my boss would call it, the weeds quite a lot. So how have you dealt with that? How do you keep yourself focused on the business goals?
I mean, focusing on the business goal, usually there's like kind of 3 sort of cadences with the teams. Like one cadence is day for day. You meet at the daily and you talk, what's coming up next and where do you need help. And then the next cadence kind of is like a 2-weekly sprint. So at the beginning of the sprint, you discuss, hey, this is what we should do. And at the end of the sprint, you demo it to stakeholders or to other people. What have we achieved? And then the last cadence is like this quarterly. Like I like to think 3 months is a good, you can't plan ahead too much, but at the same time, you need a bit of structure. So quarterly is good for me. And this is where I'm involved a bit more in these quarterly plannings, saying, hey, these are the big goals that we want to achieve. And this is a bit how we see the teams working towards this goal. There's, of course, a lot of hiring going on as well, and some people, switch to different teams. So this quarterly cadence, this is a bit where I'm more involved. And then when it's about actually going into the weeds, it's often about introducing a new tool, or I'm assessing what tool we use or how do we approach a certain problem. If something is new, I'm more involved. And then it's for me more about how do I withdraw myself from this and actually give it to the team so they can continue to work on this.
Do you miss it? Do you miss kind of the weeds, as it were, the technology?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I do like hobby projects and stuff, but every time I get into it, I realize how much effort it is to set up everything and get the development working, and then 2 hours later you have done nothing except for installing tools, and so I'm out of it pretty quickly.
So back to the day job. Okay, and obviously, one of the key things you've spoken about, we're near up to a year in the Leaders series now on the podcasts, but is around COVID and remote working. Had you worked in remote environments before? I mean, obviously a lot of programmers have, not many recruiters have, but had you worked, from home before?
Yeah, not really. I mean, in the beginning, we were pretty conservative with people working from home. Of course, now everyone is working, so it was a bit of an accelerator for this. I think for technologists, it's a bit easier to get into it because you usually use Slack or some form of online chat anyway, and then just the step towards video calls is not too far away. But for our business departments, it was a real accelerator, and now actually I'm pretty enjoying it. Like, I don't want to do remote work full time, but I certainly don't see a future where you spend 5 days per week in the office either. I think I'm really hoping for a flexible mix,
hybrid,
a hybrid. Looking forward, and different people they experience this remote work very differently. I mean, there are certainly people also who want to go back to the office. I'm having a small place. I need to switch off when I finished with work or this kind of thing, and I totally understand it. And but the other way around as well, right? Like people who say, no, this remote thing that
get more stuff done. Yeah, exactly. And has it changed you as a leader, do you think, in the last 12 months? You talked about the cadences, you talked about kind of getting involved in certain areas of the project. What do you think has been different for you as a leader?
I mean, the obvious challenge is that to be casually in touch with your team, you don't casually bump into each other, right? So one-on-ones that I have done before already have become really a real asset now to be in touch with people and to have regular interactions. And in the beginning, I experimented a little bit on, how to space them, how long to do them, and when we were in the office, it was more like, let's have maybe 45 minutes every two weeks. And then I switched towards more like, hey, let's have little check-ins, but more often, just to keep in touch. And then I saw, hey, this is actually working out. People are okay. And then we switched back to these more longer frequencies.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about trust on the podcast, and I think for leaders like ourselves, it's been a really interesting and positive experience to see that trust can really exist within a workplace, and that people kind of working to their own rhythms and their own flexibility can really do really great work, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you thought micromanagement works, I think maybe it has. I think it was never a good idea, but remote work really is like an amplifier for these wrong ways of management anyway. So yeah, trust is super important, right? And of course, also on the other side, you need to expect from people that they are also very proactive. If you have a problem, no one will tap on your shoulders and ask you, or maybe they do, but you also have to be very proactive. And this is amazing how to see what comes out of this trust and proactivity.
Now, the way I understand it, now moving on to Doctari, what Doctari provides is a worker management platform, so that if hospitals, surgeries, doctors, nurses, etc., need short-term labor for particular shifts or whatever, that Doctari can provide those people through a kind of an automated connection tool. Am I right in saying that's kind of the elevator pitch? Now, if you listen to that, you would think that you guys will have been incredibly busy in the last 12 months, unhappily, obviously, because it's been a very difficult time for health services. Has that come to pass? Has it been like real pressure on you and real heightened desire for your product?
Yeah, I think business has been a bit of a mixed bag because, of course, there is a high demand, like with vaccination and these sort of things. But there's also like different procedures have been postponed that maybe someone said is not so necessary. So business has died down a little bit on this front. Like we have less operations in clinics, and they also need to reserve certain beds for incoming patients or for emergencies. So there's kind of less business. Clinics have kind of had less business in the past. At the same time, I mentioned it before, like we are now working on the staffing for a vaccination center in Hamburg. It's the biggest one in Germany, and Hamburg decided to vaccinate people in a central place. And we basically provide the staffing for this vaccination center. So that's completely new opportunities as well, right? So and then in the same time when we said, hey, the business is a bit slower, then these new opportunities come up, and of course we also work on automating more things. Like we double down on the software side to maybe take this opportunity to also come out of this crisis, in a stronger way with stronger services and stronger tools.
And a lot of it's all been an adaptation, hasn't it? You couldn't foresee this was coming. Did you have to do some really quick software development? Did you have to kind of we need to change the product like this, or was the product quite solid that it could adapt to different requirements?
Yeah, with this vaccination center, we decided on a completely new tool. So I think that was the right choice, because really we had to get something up and running within weeks. And now, of course, we are kind of trying to integrate it better into the rest of the IoT landscape. And that, of course, if you build up some tools over time, right, that always takes a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is that you can kind of do that nowadays with the tools that are out there. And as a leader, I guess you have to set people in the right way to say, because there is that element, particularly in what you're doing, of this is really important. Like if everything's important, business, commerce, but we need to get this vaccine center set up in Hamburg. Has a different type of motivation and incentive, really, for people, doesn't it? Do you find it's easier to motivate people to do something that's important?
I think this is a general feeling in the medtech industry, right? That you are working for companies that have a really, really good purpose, and that's also what makes this enjoyable. I mean, other industries are also great, right? But this makes it really enjoyable to work there. Like, and you can really see, with the results, that you did something useful for everyone.
That's fantastic, and you can see those results very quickly, can't you? So hopefully you had a fully motivated team and everyone working well together. What's the advice you would give to software development leaders then, who have to quickly change their product for such an important moment or issue?
I mean, maybe there are two kind of categories. I mean, one category is where you have a completely new goal and you have to fulfill it. And then probably it's really good to, I mean, we are fully bought into software as a service, although we would have never been able to get a system up and running that quickly, right? To react on these new opportunities. At the same time, I also see a lot of companies where maybe the business slows down a little bit. And my suggestion would there be more like, you know, to really keep focusing on the goal, because the crisis will be over. And I think the companies who have used the time of the crisis, you know, rather than running around like chickens, maybe have doubled down on their focus. I think they will come out again really strong. For example, there's a company in Berlin that is a platform to, you know, to sell tickets like Disney World or access to different tourist attractions. And they said, hey, our business has died down, but now we are double down on what we are good at. And they took more money onto, and I think they will be really strong because maybe other businesses aren't as
that's right. Yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's you know, fixing that roof, isn't it? You know, and it's not raining or whatever, it's to probably really push it forward and take that opportunity to build a better product. And you're obviously within that innovative technology world. You think, you know, about how technology can improve things. And as we know, the areas that you worked in or have worked in for the last few years are very, very key at the moment. They've really raised in importance and visibility to the world. How do you think that innovative technology will really help the industry to move forward and provide a better service?
I mean, with medtech, obviously regulations play a strong part in everything. And of course, squaring like agile development with a lot of regulations and restriction, that's a key challenge. And I think this is really something we need to get better at. For example, in Germany, you have like mobile apps, and that you can actually get paid for by health insurances. But of course, you have to fulfill a strong catalog of regulations, and GDPR is obviously always in the mix. So any company that kind of develops, you know, this skill to be very iterative, to be very agile, but still being good in fulfilling these regulations, I think they will have a big future.
And both of those opposing pressures are important, aren't they? So it's quite difficult to reconcile them, isn't it?
Especially after the fact. Like I worked for a company that first they developed a mobile app or a service to kind of foresee what on your symptoms, what kind of sickness you might have. And then they, after the fact, they tried to put in all the they were very early on, right. And afterwards, they try to add the regulations on top of it, and that's super hard because, you know, processes are not set up like this. Your people are not aware of what's going on. It's really hard to do it afterwards.
I can imagine that's quite a hard thing to build, isn't it? Because, you know, that's a little bit like looking on Google to say I've got a pain in my knee, and then Google tells you all the things that could be wrong with you. You know, you've got to get that right, I guess. And the other area that you work within is obviously this workforce management, which obviously links into the recruitment and the staffing industry in terms of, you know, you could use this product, I guess, for any type of shift work, any type of even IT worker work. You know, what have you learned from working very closely within these areas, within the staffing area? Has it been interesting for you to see how it works?
I mean, for me, like hiring more engineers works fairly different to the way we are staffing like medical professionals. I think it's a fairly different jobs, but you know, you always hear like hiring people, and then in the beginning I was super confused when I started my company. Are they now talking about hiring employees or hiring medical professionals? And was very confusing. But staffing, of course, we built up a large database of professionals that want to work with us, a large database of clinics that want to work with us, and then it's like, you know, getting a good match in terms of, you know, what every party wants to achieve. And
you talked about automation a little bit. You know, how can you see like automation helping the process to be more efficient?
Yeah, getting this good match, right? Matching skills, availability is very hard because you never exactly know, can the doctor work on this weekend? Are they available or not? You kind of have to ask this. So currently it's a bit of a mix of semi-automation, but still manual steps in there as well. And of course, we want to get better at it to make it as automated as possible.
And when you're working with your clients, do you see like you said about the vaccination center, is there a kind of 100% take up, and is it really impressive for your customers? I'm sure you're going to say it is, but they kind of, wow, this is like you've showed them a whole new world, changed the way they think about staffing.
I mean, that's certainly the future of doctari as well, to maybe go more into like maybe workforce management, maybe, taking over the staffing at the clinic, as an external company. I think other industries already do this. So it's a bit going away from this, one placement and then we are done kind of thing, more to more strategic thinking. Hey, what does the clinic or what does a vaccination center actually need in the future, in the next 3-5 years, what kind of staff they need, and then help them build this up. So this is also an interesting development.
Sure. And then thinking about your own business, as we come out of COVID, things seem to be really hotting up at the moment. Thinking about Berlin, huge amounts of startups starting again, the big corporates are hiring again, which is all great news, but maybe not so much for hirers, because it makes it more candidate-centric market. How do you see the talent in the staffing landscape progressing over the coming months and years?
I mean, during Corona, it was, I have to say, easier for us to hire. I think a lot of people may be looking for something a bit more permanent. Maybe there are also companies that let go a few people. So recently we had less problems filling position. I mean, it's always hard, but sometimes it's a little less hard. I mean, for us, it's also like, for the year that I worked with the company, like we tripled the engineering team, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually, if you look at other companies, they kind of in hyper growth, right? Like we are growing fairly steadily.
Yeah.
And
I always laugh at these companies that say we've taken on 100 people in the last month, and you're like, how have you done that? It just seems like such a huge amount of work, doesn't it? To kind of give someone a really good start, like one person is the work of one person, and then you need 100 people to take those 100 people on. I always laugh at that and think, wow, that's impressive, right?
It's really super hard for the culture, if you have a lot of people coming in, and as you mentioned, onboarding is super important. And I'm wondering if every company that gets 100 new people on board also maybe doesn't lose a few people.
Yeah, loses 100. I've seen that before. I know I've looked at our stats. Sometimes you hire 100 and maybe lose 75, so you grow 25, don't you? So, but it's great. It's great to hear from yourself. And I think one of the things that's particularly interesting is obviously just understanding, how your software is really changing an industry, and an industry that's so important at the moment. So it's been great to speak to you, Claus. Thanks very much for your time today. I'm sure that you'll take doctari on to even greater success kind of post-COVID, and well done on helping with the vaccination center in Hamburg. Sounds like that was a great success.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Claus. Cheers.